I got married at the age of 20. Um, my husband and I were high school sweethearts, and as exciting as that was, it brought about its own challenges. We fell in love, and it was all great, but there were a lot of expectations. I feel like I thought I was ready, but there was no class that I attended that was called Marriage 101. How was I supposed to manage all of this? I was only, like I said, 20. I just did my A levels. I was the captain of my basketball team. That's what I was good at. I ordered my Banto Jora and it was supposed to be great. And we had a great Mehndi and we went to college together. We were supposed to have a great time and we did. But we stumbled, in a lot of places. But we always managed to kind of, put it all together, and we always seemed to kind of get back up. I always struggled in terms of, the roles I was playing. We would come back from college, summer and winter breaks, and the breaks that would happen in the middle. I would struggle in terms of, playing the daughter-in-law role. I wanted to kind of come back the way my friends were coming back from college and kind of, sleep in and not be the perfect daughter-in-law, not attend those dinners and brunches and not be downstairs and serving everybody. Again, I love my family, I love my in-laws, they're great. But I kind of wanted to be carefree, I miss that. Why was I struggling to be perfect? Why couldn't I just be good enough? They would have accepted me either way. And in this struggle to be perfect, I kept messing up. And they kept accepting me the way I was because, they had chosen me the way I was. My husband had chosen me the way I was. And it took me really long to realize that I didn't have to be perfect. Being a girl has been very challenging, being raised in a very conservative household. It's always been a very restricted mahal, and kind of maneuvering through that has been quite eventful for me. I kind of always felt like, ab kya challenge aayega? It's always been like getting to a point and then being faced with लड़कियां ये नहीं कर सकती या ये हमारी फैमिली में अलाउड नहीं है, लोग क्या कहेंगे, ये अच्छा नहीं लगता, ये ना पहनो, ये ना करो. My dad's voice, my dada's voice, these kind of voices kind of still, I can still hear these voices right now when I talk about it. Later on, even, at some level, my husband's voice, my father-in-law's voice, it's kind of carried on for me, even society's voice. So men play a huge part in our society, in all forms, in all roles. Men as a society, proving to man as a whole that लड़कियां as a matter of fact कर सकती हैं, कुछ भी कर सकती हैं, that kind of has been an ongoing war for me. Again, for me, that has been a problem. I've always been wanting to prove to them that I can in fact do it. And that's something that has been a recent realization that I don't want to win that war, And when that shift happened, where I kind of, took a step down, where I said, I don't want to win. It's not me against you. It's not me against society. It's not me against my husband. It's not me against my father. It's not me against my dada. It's not me against my father-in-law. It's just me against myself. Once my belief system changed, that I can in fact do it. These people were never standing up against me. It was my belief system that was against me. And once I started doing all of those things, these people were actually on my side all along. I have the perfect support system right now. My husband supports me. My father-in-law asks me about my business. My dad gives me great ideas. How did these things fall into place right now when they weren't falling into place till 2 years ago? It's not me against them. It's just me against myself. And that little shift changed a lot. My grandmother, my dadi, is the strongest woman I know. And I've grown up with her. I would give a lot of my raising credit to her, because I've grown up in a joint family system. And whenever something would happen, whenever my mom would be angry at me and I'd be really scared of her, I'd run downstairs to my dadi. As a child, I have beautiful memories of growing up in that house. I really respect my mother for raising me with those, values, that value system, and how she held that household together. And whatever challenges she faced, perhaps as a child, I didn't realize whatever challenges, huge challenges that she had to face, and how she held it all together. For me as a child, I have immense amount of respect for her. All of what I learned, I will always carry with me and pass it on to my children. What was always encouraged for me as a child was to be an independent kid, to grow up as an independent person. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure whether that was because it was because of the lack of resources that we had, or because it was the way my parents wanted to bring me up. Growing up, it was mostly me and my older brother. We have a 3-year age difference. And it was always encouraged for us to, play and discover. And, we were left on our own to discover nature. And I really enjoyed that as a child. Yet, when I started growing up a little bit, I realized that there was a lot of gender inequality. And boys were given more freedom. I had a lot of male cousins. Belonging to a Memon family, the gender roles became really apparent. Ye nahi pehen sakte, ye nahi kar sakte. You will go to an all-girls school. Those kind of restrictions started coming in fairly early. Those kind of messages were made pretty clear to me at a very young age. And those didn't settle well for me, I saw girls belonging to the same kind of families like me, the same households like me, who used to abide by these rules, who were okay with the restrictions, whether it may be the clothes, whether it may be, Maghrib ke baad bahar nahi jao, ye nahi pehno, ye nahi karo, internship nahi karo, sports nahi khelo, ladko se baat na karo, ye wali sari cheezein. I wanted to be so much more. I wanted to do so much more. I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to work. I had a really different idea about what I wanted from my life from a very young age. I don't know where this idea had come from. I didn't belong to a very modern family. My parents never spoke to me about girls having this life. We were being raised as independent kids, but the messages given to us were very different. So I grew up to be a very confused child, I felt. I excelled at sports. Any sport you gave me, I excelled at it. I would call myself a fairly good student. I did well at school. So I used to do good at things. When the Sindh team was being selected, or when things like that were happening, you're not allowed to do it. The nationals were happening, can't do it. I was allowed to get to that point because I know I had the capability and they knew I had the capability. But when that happened, when I got there, they would pull the string, saying, now you can't do it. I was allowed to apply to college. I was smart enough to get in. But when I got in, they pulled the string. They said, now you can't go. It did make me feel like, they hold the power. I don't. I'm just a puppet in their show where they play the cards and, I just do what they say. So who am I then? I know exactly what I want, but I can't do it. Again, it was this very difficult feeling all the time. It was just like, how do I get there? How do I get there? But I saw my brothers getting there. I saw my cousins getting there. I don't resent anybody. There is no resentment inside me. The only thing that I feel like I lost out on was time. It just took me a lot longer to get to where I wanted. I always felt like there was something missing. I was always part of a race. There was always like this part of me said that there is something that I was looking for. I always knew I wanted to be a mental health counselor. That was my purpose in life. That was decided at the age of 16. I knew that was what I wanted to be. And that was going to be the meaning of my life. And when I decided that, how I wanted to get there, I didn't know at that time, but that's what I wanted to be. I thought that was going to be a very rewarding profession for me. At that age also, I remember I used to find answers to questions like, why am I feeling like this? Why do I feel angry? Why is he feeling angry? Why is she feeling angry? Why do feelings like this exist? I would observe behaviors of people. And I remember these things very clearly. My friends would come to me for advice. I remember more than my friends' boyfriends would come to me a lot, discussing my friends with me. And I would have really long conversations. So I was pretty much a therapist at that time also. A lot of the issues, whether they came from relationships, romantic relationships, or relationships that came from home, stemmed from pain. Everything just stemmed from pain. The emotion pain kind of became the root cause of everything. And the more I saw of this, the more I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. We all, though, have the capability of taking responsibility of our own lives. Do we want to, though? Do we want to take the responsibility? That's the question. We kind of have to reprogram ourselves, rewrite our scripts. All these messages that we're carrying from our childhood, the sense of worthlessness, that we're not good enough, those get engraved within us. And those become our internal language that get carried on to our adult relationships. That kind of becomes us. Everyone's born a clean slate, a baby. We're all born the same. It's the environment that gives us these messages. And that's what makes us who we are. That's what makes everyone an individual. So it's the experiences that makes our belief system, makes us what we take in, our values, our beliefs, that's what we are taking in from the environment. We can actually disconnect and rewire. We all have that power. We just don't realize it. And if everyone was to kind of stop, understand what we have taken from the environment, from our parents, from our generations, even from our grandparents, There's even intergenerational trauma. We're taking in messages from our great grandparents also. For a joint family system. So there's, puppos and chachas and all of that. Those messages are being taken in by children. So there's a child who's like, oh, my taya wants me to be a doctor and my chacha wants me to be a businessman. And what does the child want to be? The child doesn't know. There's so much pressure involved. Even religion here comes in, plays a part. What does the child want to do? The child doesn't want to be a Quran Hafiz, for example. But the parents say, no, you have to do this. What does religion say at the end? What do all religions say in the end? Be a good human being, right? A child then grows up with a mix of values and beliefs. Pick the child up and remove all of these messages. Remove the environment. Remove the social system. Remove religion. What do you get? Nothing. You just get a human being. It's so sad that we've stopped seeing humans as humans. We see humans as behaviors, and we see humans as social systems, and we see humans as all these labels that we put on them. And then we ourselves get afraid that, we're going to get labeled if we do this. If we do this, I'm going to get known to be as this, or mujhe log ye kahenge. And that's what society does to us. We then get scared to stand up for ourselves. And a lot of my clients then come to me saying this, that my parents want to do this and I want to do this. And the system, this is what system does to us. This is where suicide also comes in. A lot of young people commit suicide because of this reason. The school system puts a lot of pressure on you. The government puts a lot of pressure on you. There's a lot of work pressure. People don't know who they are. So these experiences is what makes our belief system. If we could all just sit down and recognize our own values and our own belief system and understand that what we were taught and what's our own, it would really, it's a real eye-opener. And that would then be the definition, perhaps, of ourself. Who am I? There's so many times I've asked all of my clients, who are you? And they don't have the answer. So I've always been asked why I wanted to be a therapist. I'm always very clear on the answer now. Though a few years ago, or a decade ago rather, I was under the impression that perhaps because I couldn't help myself, or because I felt so helpless about my own state of being, there are others out there who feel like me, and I could help them. And I'd be able to relate to their situation. Never did I realize that in this journey of learning, I'll learn so much about myself. There'll be so much self-awareness. There'll be so much unlearning for me. I'll be able to reflect on my own behavior until much later, until I joined this training. So as a 16-year-old, 18-year-old, I always thought a therapist is a mental health counselor is to, study the books, know the theories, know the theorists, know all the material, and go in there, talk to the client. They come to you, you fix them, and they leave. So essentially, then anyone can be a mental health counselor, right? Because all you need is interest. Once I got into the training, once I studied it, I realized that it was not that simple. There was so much more to it. There was a lot of, stuff that had to come out of me first. I had to be empty. If you take me as a container, That's what the whole training has been about for these past 3 years. You know, we have to be sorted ourselves for us to have space for our clients' material. If we have constant stuff going on, then we don't have space at all. Having said that, we're as human as our clients. One simple rule of therapy is that there can't be anything in between a therapist and a client. There has to be no table in between. There is nothing in between. We're equals. You know, we connect. Fine, there'll be no physical touch, but you know, there's vibrations, there's energy, the vibes, there's eye contact. There's so much, you can feel so much in that room that you'll instantly connect. Even when I'm talking with my clients online because of the lockdown, the past few months, there is so much energy there. There's so much connection. And in the first year of our training, it's actually self-development. We only focus on ourselves. And that self-awareness, that self-reflection, everything is inwards. Everything comes out. And if we don't look inwards, how are we going to have space for our clients? Some stuff is accepted by some people, and you know, some things are just left unsaid and undone, and that's how it is. And that's a process. And then we kind of understand our processes, and there are no biases, and there's so much acceptance for everything else, for all genders, you know, for all sexualities. We make space. And we learn cultures, we learn languages, you know, there's just a lot of holding, a lot of containment learned. Just the feeling changes, you know, from what I knew when I was 16, 18 and what I know now, just the feeling has changed. You know, the sense of it has changed. The degree of it has changed. The respect for what I do has changed. Because it changed me. The respect I have for my therapist, because you know how he shows up for me every week. I know that what I do probably does change lives of many people, because I know the respect I hold for my therapist. I know that I do things day in, day out because I want to be an example for people every day. I do it because I want to be that example for people every day. There came a time in my life, say 8 to 10 months ago, where my core was shaken. Everything and everybody that mattered to me once in my life didn't want anything to do with me. I felt hurt, abandoned. I just wanted to give up. Everything was just falling apart. I had never felt like this before, so my performance at work started getting affected. You know, my client work started suffering a little bit. My home life started getting affected. My kids suffered. My health suffered. Everything started coming to a halt, and I knew something had to be done. I just didn't know what. It was a very dark and scary time in my life. I've seen dark times, and I always seem to get up. What did this time got me up were my kids. They're my strength. I was just like, I have to kind of do this for them. If I let them down, what's going to happen? They kind of look up to me. I got this necklace made, and it has their names engraved, Laila, Noor, and Mir. And I wear this around everywhere, and every time I'm feeling down, I think about my kids, and that really gives me strength. And at the lowest point in my life, I knew that I had to keep going because of my kids. I kind of started looking inwards, and I said, I'm not going to expect people to change. I'm going to change myself. Maybe I've made mistakes. And I had made mistakes. I had hurt people along the way. So I became stronger. I mended some of my ways, and I got up again. There was a lot of support from my supervisor. There was a lot of support from my tutor. There was a lot of support from my therapist. And these three mentors, I would say, and I hold deep respect for all of these three people in my life who kind of were there like rocks, and they said, you got to do this. And I had kind of lost focus. And just by aligning myself, then I got up. I understood the connection I had lost, the mind, the body, and the soul, that connection. And I learned how to recenter and refocus. And once I did that, I was back. And I felt like, the light in me kind of had come back. And there was like this rebirthing and this re-emerging that had occurred. And not only did I feel it within me, I felt it in my body, and I felt it in my soul, and I literally felt it just everywhere. The experience was really profound, and I felt it literally in the mind, body, and soul. And it was so profound that, again, it was felt by my therapist and by my supervisor and by my tutor. It was this collective journey that we took together. May have been my journey, but it was not, I couldn't have done it without their support. Everyone gets lost when I say, mind-body connection. Align yourself, regulate yourself. When I got pregnant with my twins, they turned 3 in 2 months. It was a total surprise. It came as a surprise to me as well. I feel like I was prepared for a pregnancy. I felt like my body was prepared, but I wasn't. I went into shock when I found out I was pregnant with twins. My body couldn't take it. I wasn't strong enough. I went through a tough pregnancy. I had to move to London for the most part of my pregnancy. I had to give up work, and I had a 3-year-old to take care of. And when I was in London, sure, we had privileges. We had a roof over our head. We had food to eat. I put my son in the best school there. Sure, all of those privileges we had and we made the most of. But emotionally, I was a wreck. I was breaking down. I would wake up. I would, feed my son. I would take him to school. I would cook. That's all I did. I would cook, clean, pick up my son, cook for my son, take him to school, pick him up from school. That was my life, in and out. Go to my doctor's appointments, get ultrasounds, in and out. That's what I did. And it really took a toll on my emotional health, on my physical health. I had my twins without my parents. I had my husband with me. I had my in-laws with me, and they were very supportive. But I didn't think that I was going to go through, a very tough pregnancy and then deliver my twins without my mother beside me. So that in its own was very tough. I was being very, very strong. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do this on my own. And I did pull through. And I remember that time in the hospital was the toughest time. I don't think I've been in that excruciating amount of pain ever. And even when I think about that pain now, it sends chills down my body. But I think that's also the way the world prepares you for worse things. It's the way women are made. And to understand our strength also, perhaps, you know, that I was made to, because they were in the incubator, they were born 34 weeks premature. And they were in the incubator, and they told me that you have to pump for them. And then the nurse would call me in the middle of the night saying, your twins are crying and you need to pump and you need to walk to the nursery yourself and deliver the milk. And I said, why can't you send a nurse to me and just take the milk from me and just take it to them? And they would say, no, you need to walk. And I said, I just had a C-section, this is really tough for me to walk all the way from my room to the nursery. And it was the most excruciating pain. And yet I would do it. And I guess the kids made me do it, the fact that I was doing this for my children. I came back home with the twins, from 1 to 3. It was a big jump, I feel. I just felt really overwhelmed with all of this. It's like, the world prepares you. And all of this then prepared me, because I had then gained so much weight. My body was, and I then struggled for a very long time with weight issues, with body issues, with body image issues. I then made a very conscious decision much later on that I'm going to make a change. And I said, you know what, I'm going to make a difference in my life. I'm going to make a change. And I have had enough of this. I had my children. I used my body for them. It was given to me to provide for them, and I did it. And now it's time that I do it for myself. I remember scuba diving on my 11th anniversary. I was underwater and I decided this. I gave up sugar on that trip. I gave up all carbs on that trip. I gave up all soft drinks on that trip. And my body's never felt better. I left processed carbs. I haven't had a soft drink since then. When I took up yoga, I took up on the same trip when I gave up, sugar and carbs. And since then I haven't left it. When I spoke to my yogi here, she told me, I was talking to her about my back pain, and she said, I sleep on the floor. And I said, really? How long have you been doing this? And she said, forever. I don't have a bed. I don't have a mattress. I looked it up, and there was a lot of research on this. There was a lot of history. And from that day onwards, I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to, do this. And every night I'd put out a yoga mat, just a yoga mat. My husband would question me. My kids would question me. I did this on our trip also. And my husband said, at least on our trip, just sleep on the bed. This is so strange that you do this. And I said, but this is life-changing for me. My back doesn't hurt anymore, And he said, but I don't get it. And it was actually so profound. It changed my life. I would sleep straight. And in the morning when I would get up, I would just get up straight. It was life-changing. Just my back pain hasn't come back since. I've realized that, the mind and the body and the soul, if they're not aligned, you're not thinking straight, you're not focused. There has to be alignment. When I got to that state where I was then doing yoga, when, I got to the weight there where I was happy, I again had to go another step further. I then decided that I wanted to give up all meat, all sorts of animal protein in my life. I went vegan. Once I was aligned, once my mind, body, and soul was aligned, my life changed. And every time I felt like something was off, I went a step further. There are so many times that I remind my clients that these are your choices. I lay it down for them that, hey, A, B, C, what are your choices? And sometimes, they're like, oh my God, yeah, I forgot that these are my choices, because there's so much trauma involved. There's so much oppression, and they forget. But I've discovered that meditation, the breathing, helps you realize, because it brings you in the here and now. It makes you forget your past. It makes you stop thinking about your future. And when you're in the here and now, when you're breathing, you can regulate. You realize you have the power. You are the choice maker. And there's 3 things that meditation actually asks for. It's attention, the willingness, and focus. Those are actually just 3 things meditation asks for. You don't need anything more. And there's so many times when, we call this resource building. With the client, we'll tell the client, okay, let's build on some resources. And even friends will come in this resource building list that, call some friends, yoga will come in, exercise will come in, sleep will also come in this resource building. And as soon as sometimes I'll talk about exercise and yoga and meditation, the client will be like, but I can't meditate and I can't focus and, this is not for me. How much time do you spend time on your phone or, waiting in line to get into a good restaurant or, a younger client or something like that, when I'm trying to motivate them into, slowing down. And, that willingness and that focus is really important. Just focusing on the same thing every single day. It starts from the intention, which is the thought process. Ek beej dal dena wahan par. And, having that thought process, having that intention, and then, working your way up from there. And once you have that, you literally just work your way up. And it just starts from there. Even the mind and the body and the soul work from there. So it's the thought process. The mind starts working. Your body then starts becoming stronger. The universe then starts working with you. And then the people around you start seeing that, okay, this person is working towards this. And just like that, everything starts working towards the same goal. Why do things work out for this person and why don't things work out for me? How sometimes we say this and you'll be like, oh, it doesn't work out for me. How does it work out for her? Or she's so lucky. But it's not that way. It's actually, the universe works this way because, it's the intention that was probably, that person had that intention 3 years ago or 5 years ago. He probably thought of that. And that person's probably been thinking and working towards it. And the universe then, works with that person. And that's how it works. And I've actually seen this happen for me. I'm not saying I'm there, but I know that the process happened for me. And it started with that intention. And I see myself at 70% right now. And I know where I have to go. Thanks to my mother, I've always been, fond of cooking and I would call myself domesticated. Being born into a household where it's always been encouraged to, cook and help out in the kitchen. Always somehow being told that a woman belongs in the kitchen also. My mother was not encouraged to work. She works now from the home. So perhaps things did change over time for her. And I'm glad that she did get to do something eventually for herself. I've helped out. We did not have the privileges we have now. And, that did teach me a lot. Perhaps things that I use now for my children. I may have not liked it at that time, that, my brothers were playing outside and they got to go out with their friends, and, I was mopping the floors with my mother, or, doing things like that, which I didn't like doing at that time. But it did help me a lot later on in life, I realized. To learn cooking also, which again did help me a lot. When I realized that all three of my kids were lactose intolerant, I then started to read up into it a lot, and I then also looked into why this is happening to my children, and then I realized that perhaps, milk is not that nutritious after all after a certain age. I would make different plant-based milks and make the family try it, and my kids loved it. So then I would make some friends try it, some family try it, and by now I had already switched to the ones I was making myself and the kids. And now friends and family, close friends and family was asking for the milk that I was making. This gave me the idea of, why not turning this into a small home-based business. Small home-based business then, took a turn into the health nut. People would appreciate the quality of the milk, and every time, the consistency was the same and the quality was the same, and we would get really appreciative messages that we would deliver on time and things like that. And I was working really, really hard. The marketing team member, she also worked really hard with me to get us there to that point. She messaged me, and that message I remembered and I really cherished because it really meant something. And I had mentioned that phrase, that turning point phrase that I mentioned, that's intuition. This was one of those messages for me. She messaged me saying, Arvind, do you realize that you started with nothing? You started with an idea, and you've gotten somewhere. You've made a name, a small name perhaps, but you did get somewhere with just an idea. She used the word celebrated. Have you celebrated yourself? And that thought that, I have gotten this far. It has been these many months. And till that point, I hadn't realized that, it had been these many months that I had started the health nut off, and I had spent this much time. And for me, I would always think, I've sold these many bottles, I have invested this much money, I have spent this much time, made these many people happy, changed these many lives, made these many people healthy, and that's what I was missing out on. Because the messages that I was getting, that's what the messages read. You've changed my life, you've made me lose weight, you've made my kids so happy. I can't drink my morning coffee without your milk. Those were the messages I was getting, but I wasn't reading that. I would punch in numbers. I would punch in sales, bottles, because I was still in debt. And that one message from the marketing team, did you celebrate, changed my perspective. From the beginning of this academic year, our tutor taught us that in the psychodynamic theory, we were taught the attachment theory, the regression model. We were taught about Freud, we were taught about Bowlby, we were taught about Fairbairn, we were taught about Kohut, we were taught about all these theorists, and they all started from the primary caregiver, essentially. It created a lot of anxiety within me. It created anxiety because I felt like I had a lot of responsibility. Being a mother of 3, I felt like I had a lot of weight on my shoulders. I had a lot to give to my children. Apart from that, I felt like I had a lot of reparenting to do. That I had that responsibility also on myself. I wanted my kids to be responsible. I wanted my kids to be strong. I wanted my kids to be independent. But I felt like I had a lot of learning to do myself at the same time. It took a lot of convincing from my husband as well, I would say, where he would have to tell me that, you need to kind of stop at a certain point where you don't kind of overcompensate for something. And sometimes I still kind of beat myself up that am I overworking? Am I not doing enough? Am I doing enough? Where do we draw the line? What's the balance? Where is the balance? What this training has also taught me is the importance of play. I was, under the impression of wanting to teach my children, manners and, values and beliefs, which of course hold a lot of importance. I realized that if a child is not learning the way you want them to learn, then perhaps you need to change your style of teaching. You know, there is a different way they want to learn, and perhaps the parent needs to adapt. I learned that I need to adapt to their ways of learning, especially after my twins. They're the same, but they're so different. They ask differently, they want differently, they even say it differently. They have such different personalities. One has a really big personality and how one is going to ask for things in a really, profound way, yet the other one will ask for the same thing in a very, very soft manner. So they're asking for the same thing, but in very, very different ways. I was teaching them in the same way, but they were grasping it in a very different manner. And so from that, I realized that my way of teaching them both has to change because they were grasping it in different ways. I had to start responding to them also differently. I had to start not treating them like one because they were not one. And that also took me a while to understand. But they've taught me so much, and I've grown so much because of the way they are, because of how I've had to adapt to the way they are. The twins have learned and have wanted to play with cars because of their brother. Mir wants to apply nail polish because of his sisters, and I'm very open to the idea of him wanting to apply nail polish. And I'm going to be sitting applying nail color for the girls, and he's going to come saying, Mama, can you apply it for me as well? And I'm very open to it, and I'll be like, sure. And we'll have, we're going to have this, spa day, and we're going to have this thing, and we're all going to do it together. The play factor is very important. Let him figure out who he is. If he wants to apply nail color, the gender factor should not come in here. If he wants to have long hair, the gender factor should not come in here. I think this is where society plays a big role, where fingers are pointed at a 6-year-old, where he has blue nails, or he has long hair, or if he wants to have a ponytail, or if he wants to wear a hairband, or if he asked me if he can pierce his ears. I'm being told that, you live in this culture. Who makes culture? We make the culture. We are the culture. We are the individuals who are accumulative of this culture. If you and I and 15 other people let our boys paint their nails and grow their hair long and pierce their ears, that's going to be the culture, and then that's going to be okay. But because culture doesn't allow that, because society raises their eyebrows at the fact that I'm letting my son do that, that's not the norm, and that's not okay then. One of my greatest learnings of the training has been the concept of false self and true self. As a child grows up, they've been given a set of rules to follow, messages to follow, like a rule book, that this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you shouldn't do, this is what makes you a good boy, a good girl, a bad girl. That's a lot of pressure on a child. Sometimes it becomes really tough for a child because you can't follow all the rules. It's tough to follow all the norms. you kind of develop two selves to yourself, you know, like an outer self and an inner self. One that helps you survive in the world, and one that's your true self. The outer self is the false self, the one that your mother approves of, the one that your father approves of, the one that society approves of. My son will probably not wear nail polish to school, but he'll come home and say, Mama, nail polish lagaye, and he'll happily roam around. That's his true self. But when he goes to school, he'll say, nail polish utare, you know, my friend will make fun of me. And because he has to play soccer at school, right? He has to be a boy, he has to be a man, you know. He has to do all of those things because that's expected of a 6-year-old boy. But I wish for him that he could go say to his friends, you know what, I like to play soccer, but I also like to wear nail polish. I wish he could say that out loud. And I know he wants to say that, but he can't say that for himself. I know that he's going to struggle with this over time until he understands that perhaps there could be a merge of the two, you know. With time, I realized that there's always a higher purpose to everything. You know, I wanted to be an independent, autonomous individual who wanted to feel whole. What did this wholeness represent? How could I get there? Why was I choosing this route to get there? There were times I wanted love, warmth, care, and the higher purpose of that was also wholeness. So essentially, the Armin that wanted the love, care, warmth, also wanted wholeness, and the Armin that wanted independence, power, autonomy, also wanted wholeness. So the higher purpose was the same. And throughout my life, I had just chased after the same thing, but earlier I was choosing a different route to get there. And I had struggled really badly, which is why I never got there. I could never get there. I kept falling and I kept falling and it kept pushing me back. I never got there. And I still wouldn't say I've gotten there, but I know that I'm closer. I know that I see it. Earlier I couldn't even see it. So the higher purpose, now I realize, was always the same. Being whole. I feel really proud that it was my mind, it was my body, it was my soul that completed me. Being a mother of 3, I struggle. I struggle with work and managing a home. And there are times when I just want to shut these voices out, and you know, it's noise, and I remind myself that it's noise and I need to focus. And I just want to tell myself that why do you have to have this big vision for yourself, and why do you have to have these goals? And then I remind myself that it's okay, I don't need to be perfect. I remind myself that, you know, it's okay to be a good enough mother. It's okay. There are times that when I'm having a really hard day, I just remind myself that it's okay to be a good enough mother, and my kids will love me either way. And my husband will love me either way, and my parents will love me either way, and my in-laws will accept me either way, and the friends who matter will call me at the end of the day to check up on me. At the end of the day, what matters is that I have to accept and love myself, and that's what matters.